Blood trickled down Maxwell Richardson's temple as his Bentley sank beneath the surface of Lake Washington. Through blurred vision, he saw two small silhouettes tugging at the car door. "Mister, wake up." A young black girl's voice pierced the muffled chaos. "Zoe, he's dying. We need the glass breaker." Before we dive deeper into this shocking moment, where are you watching from today? If this opening caught your attention, hit that like button and subscribe to follow Maxwell's transformation from a near-death experience to a life forever changed. What would you do if total strangers risked everything to save you? Maxwell Richardson had just endured the worst day of his 45 years. Fresh out of a hostile boardroom meeting where his longtime partner Victor had undercut him yet again, he was seething with frustration as he sped through the rain-slicked curves of Lake Washington Boulevard. The Seattle downpour blurred the road, and in a single reckless moment, his Bentley hydroplaned and crashed through the guardrail. The world slowed, the sickening crunch of metal, the jolt of impact, then cold as the lake swallowed his car. Dazed and bleeding from a head wound, Maxwell sat trapped as the vehicle sank into the deep. Water poured in. His strength faded. On the shore, 12-year-old Jasmine Williams and her 10-year-old sister Zoe watched in horror from their makeshift shelter beneath a bridge. "Zoe, someone's in there," Jasmine shouted, already sprinting toward the water. Without hesitation, the girls sprang into action. Jasmine waded in, while Zoe scanned the debris-littered shoreline, her eyes landing on a discarded spark plug. Street kids knew ceramic fragments from spark plugs could shatter tempered glass. Gripping the spark plug tight, Zoe rushed into the freezing water. "I got this," she yelled, striking the passenger window. The glass exploded inward in a sharp burst. Inside, Maxwell was barely conscious, water now rising to his chest. His seatbelt locked him in. Jasmine reached through the jagged window. "Mister, wake up," she shouted, shaking him. "Zoe, the seatbelt, help me." Together, the sisters wrestled to unbuckle him. Jasmine released the latch, and Zoe, small but fierce, grabbed Maxwell's arm. Through the haze of blood, cold, and confusion, he saw two young faces, dark-skinned, drenched, determined. For a fleeting moment, he thought they might be angels. With one final push, the girls pulled him out, just as the Bentley disappeared beneath the surface. The trio collapsed on the muddy bank, gasping. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone must have witnessed the crash and called for help. When paramedics arrived, they rushed to Maxwell, his fine suit and bleeding head commanding attention. "Sir, can you hear me? We're taking you to the hospital," one said, barely noticing the two soaked children. "The girls," Maxwell croaked. "They saved me. Help them too." The medics paused, eyes flicking toward the shivering girls in tattered clothes. "Are these street kids?" one asked, suspicion clear in his voice. Even in his weakened state, Maxwell's temper flared. "They pulled me out. I'd be dead without them. Treat them." His commanding voice, though faint, had an effect. The medics reluctantly offered blankets and a cursory check. As they loaded Maxwell onto the stretcher, he insisted, "They're coming with me. We can call child services." "No." Maxwell cut them off, firm, despite his condition. "They saved my life. They're staying with me. They come with me, or I'm not going." Even bloodied and bruised, Maxwell Richardson's tone left no room for argument. His wealth and authority were unmistakable. The paramedics exchanged glances and relented, allowing the two soaked and shivering girls to ride in the ambulance beside their unlikely rescue. At Northwest Hospital, the pattern continued. Doctors rushed to treat the obviously important man. Nurses tried to separate the girls, speaking in hushed voices as if they weren't within earshot. "Someone calls social services," one whispered. "They're probably runaways." Maxwell, overhearing from behind the curtain, interrupted sharply. "The girls, stay with me. My name is Maxwell Richardson. Call my assistant, Vanessa Park, immediately." The name landed like a thunderclap. Maxwell Richardson, tech billionaire, CEO of Rich Tech Industries. Suddenly, the hospital staff's demeanor shifted. Where there had been skepticism, there was now deference. While the medical team stepped out, Jasmine cautiously approached Maxwell's bedside. Her gaze was wary, protective. "Why? Are you helping us?" she asked, her voice edged with the kind of suspicion only hardship could teach. Maxwell looked at her closely, sharp eyes that had seen too much. A protective arm wrapped around her little sister, a chin raised in defiance. "You saved my life," he said simply. "I owe you." Jasmine didn't soften. "We need to leave soon. We don't want trouble." Maxwell finally understood what she feared. "You're homeless?" he asked gently. Jasmine's jaw tensed. "We take care of ourselves. We left our foster home. It wasn't safe. Before." He could say more. A doctor returned with test results. Concussion, 3 fractured ribs, and the recommendation for overnight observation. "I'm discharging myself," Maxwell said firmly, sitting up. "Prepare the paperwork." "Mr. Richardson, that's not advisable. Do it." When Vanessa Park arrived, her tailored suit was as immaculate as her expression was stunned. "Maxwell, what happened?" she gasped, rushing to his side. Her eyes flicked to the 2 damp girls standing awkwardly in the corner. Confusion and barely concealed disapproval flashed across her face, and clipped. Efficient sentences, Maxwell explained. He ended with, "The girls are coming home with me. They need a place to stay until I can repay what I owe." Vanessa opened her mouth, but the look in Maxwell's eyes silenced her. Within the hour, discharge papers were signed, and the girls followed Maxwell to the waiting town car. The driver, impassive in his uniform, opened the door as the car pulled away from the hospital. Maxwell caught a glimpse of Vanessa's expression in the rearview mirror, her eyes wide, her lips parted slightly. Stunned by the boundary he had just crossed, the Richardson estate loomed like a sculpture against the night glass. Concrete and steel perched high above Puget Sound as the car climbed the winding drive past manicured grounds. Jasmine and Zoe pressed their faces to the windows, caught between awe and disbelief. "You live here, by yourself?" Zoe asked softly. Maxwell nodded, struck for the first time by how his world must look through their eyes. The vehicle stopped beneath a sweeping portico, and the sisters followed Maxwell inside. The atrium rose 30 feet high, with an entire glass wall opening onto a view of the water. Jasmine and Zoe, still damp and shivering in their ragged clothes, stood in stark contrast to the pristine modernism around them. Vanessa was already waiting in the foyer with several staff members, her face composed but tight. "Dr. Chen will arrive shortly to check on you," she informed Maxwell, deliberately avoiding looking at the girls. "I've prepared the blue guest suite." Then, after a pause, she added without warmth, "And I suppose we should find somewhere for them." Maxwell's frown deepened. "Prepare the connected guest rooms in the east wing for Jasmine and Zoe," he said clearly, using their names, "and have Marissa bring proper clothes and toiletries." He turned to the girls with a small nod. "You must be starving. Let's eat something while we wait." In the high-tech kitchen, the girls sat on bar stools, too tall for their legs to touch the floor. The housekeeper, Elenina, moved around them warily, preparing sandwiches. Whispers buzzed from the shadow staff, muttering under their breath. "Are they his relatives? Maybe charity cases. Should we hide the valuables?" Zoe, oblivious, gazed wide-eyed at the gleaming appliances and touch-screen walls. Jasmine, however, heard everything. And Maxwell did too. The kitchen was filled with high-end appliances, but when Alina struggled with the settings on the new smart refrigerator, Zoe quietly slid off her stool. "Can I try?" she asked, approaching the sleek touch panel. Alina hesitated, glancing toward Maxwell for approval. He nodded, intrigued, with surprising ease. Zoe navigated the interface, locating the diagnostics menu, and adjusting the temperature calibration, a problem that had baffled the household staff for days. It was just reading the humidity wrong, she explained, confidently demonstrating the sequence. You have to reset it like this when the air changes. Elena's suspicion gave way to astonishment as Zoe continued explaining the system's features with unexpected fluency. Maxwell observed in quiet awe, while Jasmine remained alert, scanning the room constantly, a silent guardian to her sisters. Open this. Their moment was interrupted by the arrival of Maxwell's neighbor, Theodore Campbell, a wealthy venture capitalist in his 60s who entered unannounced, as he often did. Max heard about the crash. Terrible business, he bellowed, before stopping short at the sight of the two black girls at the kitchen island. See you have company. The discomfort in his voice was immediate. Maxwell introduced the sisters and explained how they had saved his life. Campbell forced a thin smile. How charitable of you, he said stiffly. Very Christian, though I might have called social services instead. What followed was a masterclass in condescension and coded prejudice. Campbell peppered his conversation with lines like, "You people are naturally athletic," and seemed surprised when Jasmine responded articulately to his prying questions about school. The tension reached a peak when he began boasting about his new auntie. Zoe, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. If you're getting that much roll at 12 knots with a 22-degree hull, your stabilization system's probably off. The table fell silent. Excuse me, Campbell asked. Zoe continued, unaware that she'd violated an unspoken rule, challenging a wealthy white man's expertise. The Bertram 64 has that problem. The specs say it handles rough water, but the software overcorrects in moderate chop. You have to adjust the gyroscopic delay by 0.04 seconds, or it overcompensates. Campbell blinked, then turned to Maxwell. Where exactly did you find these children? Before Maxwell could reply, Campbell began patting his pockets. My watch. I had it a moment ago. His eyes flicked toward the girls. Must have left it while washing up, he added, though the implication was clear. Jasmine's expression hardened. She recognized the accusation instantly. Maxwell felt something stir inside him, not quite embarrassment, not quite rage, but something sharp and uncomfortable. I'm sure it's around here somewhere, he said evenly. They found the watch minutes later in the guest bathroom, exactly where Campbell had left it, but no apology followed. After Campbell left, Maxwell noticed how much more tightly Jasmine positioned herself around Zoe for the first time. He truly began to register the undercurrent of suspicion that had surrounded the girls since their arrival. The looks, the whispers, the unconscious clutching of handbags. That night, unable to sleep due to his injuries, Maxwell overheard the girls talking outside their rooms. I don't want to sleep in that big bed, Zoe whispered, her voice trembling. It feels wrong, like they're waiting for us to mess up. Jasmine responded gently, but firmly. We won't be here long, Zoe. People like them don't really see us. They see what they want. Maxwell lay awake, haunted by their words. The next morning, Vanessa cornered him in his office. Maxwell, we need to talk, she began cautiously. Those girls shouldn't be here. There are liability issues. What if they get hurt or take something? They saved my life. Vanessa, yes. And you've repaid them with food, shelter, medical care. But it's time to call social services. Before Maxwell could respond, Alina appeared at the door, clearly disturbed. Mr. Richardson, you should see this. She led them to the guest wing, where they discovered the girls hadn't used their assigned rooms. Instead, they'd built a small hidden sleeping space in a storage alcove, blankets arranged for warmth, bottled water and snacks stashed in corners. They didn't even use the beds, Alina murmured. Maxwell stared at the makeshift shelter, a weight settling in his chest. Then his phone chimed an alert from his home security system. A major update had been installed overnight. Alarmed, He hurried to the console only to find Zoe already there, her small hands flying over the keys. "I fixed it," she said calmly. "There were blind spots in the perimeter sensors. Anyone could have gotten in." He looked at the screen. A flawless new protocol was already running. "You did this?" he asked, stunned. "It's safer now," she replied, as he studied the solution this 10-year-old had written. Maxwell realized he had no idea what these girls were truly capable of. Just then, his phone rang again, his CTO, frantic. "Sir, Alpha Core is failing. We're looking at millions in losses if we can't fix it today." Unable to leave the house, Maxwell transformed his home theater into a temporary command center. As his engineers scrambled for answers, Zoe appeared at the doorway, quietly watching the scrolling code. When someone suggested a full system reboot, Zoe winced. "That won't work," she murmured. Maxwell glanced at her, curious but didn't speak. Hours passed. The system continued to crash. Stock prices were tanking. During a short break, Maxwell returned to his office and found his tablet missing. He followed the sound of typing to find Zoe on the floor, cross-legged, working furiously. "What are you doing?" he demanded, panic rising. "I fixed it," she said, handing him the tablet. "The issue isn't the execution path. It's how the system prioritizes tasks under load." Maxwell scanned the tablet. The code was brilliant, elegant, effective. His entire team had missed it. He implemented the fix anonymously. Within minutes, Alpha Core stabilized. The crisis was averted. Later that night, Maxwell found Zoe tinkering with his long broken espresso machine. "It works now," she said. Pressure valve was installed backwards. He sat down. "Zoe, how do you know these things? Where did you learn?" Zoe shrugged. "Shy now. Libraries have computers. They're warm. If you're quiet, they let you stay. I watched videos, read books. Jasmine appeared. Our mom taught us, too. Before she died. She was a computer scientist," Jasmine added softly. "Her name was Sarah Williams." Maxwell froze. That name? Later that night, he looked her up. Sarah Williams, MIT graduate. Published papers in AI. Former employee of his own company. She'd worked on early versions of Alpha Core. She'd filed a discrimination complaint. She had died of untreated sepsis. After her symptoms were dismissed as drug-seeking behavior, the system had failed her, and now, her daughters. The next morning, Maxwell made the girls an offer. "I want to help you get a real education. Zoe, your gifts are extraordinary. And Jasmine, your strength, your mind, there's more to you than you let on." Jasmine's eyes narrowed. "Why? So you can feel better? We're not a charity case." Before he could respond, his partner Victor stormed in. "You've lost your mind, Maxwell. You brought street kids into your home. You're opening the company to lawsuits and PR disaster. They saved my life," Victor sneered. "So write them a check and send them away. These people, they'll take advantage." "These people," Maxwell said, voice rising. "They're children." Later, Maxwell found Jasmine sketching alone. She closed her book quickly, but he'd already seen the drawing, himself, in cartoon form, with a speech bubble that read "temporary charity case, solved." The sting was worse than any boardroom ambush. That night, a storm rolled in. Power went out. Zoe rigged an emergency lighting system in minutes. "The generator switch was faulty," she explained. "I bypassed it." As soft light filled the room, Maxwell confronted a deeper realization. He had been part of the system that failed their mother. And now, perhaps, Maxwell had the chance to make things right. He discovered an old company photo from an awards ceremony where he'd accepted accolades for early AI innovations. In the background, barely visible at the edge of the frame, stood Sarah Williams, her expression a quiet blend of pride and resignation as she watched credit for her work be given to someone else. That image hit Maxwell hard. It captured everything. His complicity through neglect, the human cost of his obsession with innovation over equity, and the very real harm done to the mother of the two extraordinary girls now under his roof. I didn't know, he later told Jasmine, the photo between them, but not knowing when I should have, that's no excuse. In the days that followed, the morning sun cast long shadows across Maxwell's sleek office as he combed through years of internal company records. What had started as a desire to understand Jasmine and Zoe's background had grown into a full-fledged investigation into Richtech's systemic inequities. With remote access to company archives, he uncovered a damning pattern: minority employees routinely denied promotions despite excellent performance, ideas reassigned to others, complaints about discrimination quietly buried. Victor's name came up far too often. Approvals denied, credit reassigned, complaints dismissed or made to disappear. Maxwell's thoughts were interrupted by a sudden pain in his chest, a complication the doctors had warned might arise. Gasping, he knocked over a glass of water, the sound drawing Jasmine in from the other room. "Mr. Richardson?" she asked, then, assessing the situation quickly, with surprising calm, for a 12-year-old, added, "Your breathing's off. Is it your heart?" Maxwell nodded, unable to speak. Jasmine didn't hesitate. "Zoe," she called. "Bring the red-labeled bottle from the bathroom and call Dr. Chen." Within minutes, Zoe had not only brought the correct medication, but had already set up a small monitoring system she'd been building in secret. "It tracks Vital's heart rate, oxygen levels," she explained calmly, attaching sensors to his wrist and chest. "I finished calibrating it last night." Under other circumstances, Maxwell might have been unsettled by the invasion of privacy. But instead, he was awestruck. The makeshift device worked flawlessly, feeding accurate, real-time vitals into a repurposed tablet. When Dr. Chen arrived, he was stunned. "This is hospital-grade data," he said, inspecting the setup. "Where did you get this equipment?" "I built it," Zoe replied plainly, as though building a medical device from scraps was just another Tuesday. The doctor verified the readings. "Well, young lady, you might have prevented serious damage." That moment shifted something in the household. Maxwell's vulnerability had made him more human to the girls, and their calm, competent response had earned them real respect from staff, and even from Vanessa, whose chilly demeanor slowly began to thaw. A few days later, as Maxwell recovered, he approached the girls over breakfast. "I want to show you something," he said. "We're going to Richtech headquarters." The girls followed him into the downtown Seattle tower, all steel and glass and the illusion of progress. But their awe turned to discomfort quickly. Security immediately stopped them. "Sir, all visitors need to check in," the guard said, stepping directly in front of the girls while ignoring Vanessa beside them. "They're with me," Maxwell replied sharply. "They're my guests. Still need ID company policy." "I'm the CEO," Maxwell said flatly, "and I say they're allowed in." The guard stepped aside, but the tone had been set. As they toured the building, Maxwell watched through new eyes, how security watched the girls more closely than others, how employees clutched handbags tighter, how condescending tones emerged even in casual questions. No amount of company swag or day policies could obscure the truth he was now seeing firsthand. The visit ended in the engineering lab, where staff were finalizing Richtech's newest product. As a lead engineer explained complex algorithms on screen, Zoe quietly pointed to a section of code that's going to crash. She said softly. The engineer, barely masking irritation, looked down. "Excuse me? You've got a recursive loop that'll fail under load," she said, pointing again. He smirked. "Sure, sweetheart. But this is advanced work." Maxwell stepped in. "Run it. Let's see." Reluctantly, the engineer did. The system crashed exactly as Zoe predicted. Maxwell didn't gloat. He simply moved on, more convinced than ever about the hidden potential the world constantly overlooks. That night, he confronted Victor over video call. "We need to talk about Sarah Williams," he said. Victor's face barely changed. "Doesn't ring a bell. She worked for us 10 years ago. Brilliant programmer. Helped build Alpha Core. Had 2 daughters." Victor's smirk was dismissive. "Maxwell, we've had thousands of employees. I've reviewed the records," Maxwell said. "She filed a discrimination complaint. You blocked her promotions. Her contributions were reassigned. Your signature is on everything." Victor's face tightened. "This is business. Not everyone is. Leadership material. We had to think about image, client confidence." "You mean she was black and a woman?" Victor's tone turned cold. "We built a billion-dollar company by being smart. Sometimes that means accepting what sells and what doesn't." Maxwell ended the call, sickened. But he didn't need to argue anymore. He had all the proof he needed. The next day, Jasmine entered his office, Zoe trailing behind her. "We found something," she said. They led him to Zoe's workstation. She had accessed older project files, using his still logged-in terminal. "I didn't hack," she clarified. What she found was devastating. An original patent application listing Sarah as the lead inventor, followed by a revised version with her name removed. It was the foundation of Rich Tech's most profitable product. "She built this," Jasmine said quietly, "and your company stole it." Before Maxwell could answer, his phone rang. Vanessa's voice was sharp. "Victor's calling an emergency. Board meeting. He's saying you're unstable. He's moving to have you removed, and he's also contacted child services." Victor was trying to erase every threat, every piece of evidence, including the girls. That night, Maxwell returned to his room and found a handwritten note on the bed. "Some problems are too big to fix, even for billionaires. Thank you for trying. We'll be okay." The girls were gone. Their belongings, their presence vanished. Maxwell felt a hollowness he hadn't known he was capable of. But he wasn't ready to give up. He scoured Seattle through the pouring rain, searching the places they might go, under bridges, in shelters, in the invisible city the rich never see. His car and suit only made him more suspect, more alien in these places. People turned away until, finally, an older man pointed him to St. Mary's. "They've been there," the man said, "but if you're looking to help, you'd better show up like a person, not a corporation." Eventually, a message came, a single word and a set of coordinates: cemetery. There, in the shadow of a simple grave marker, reading Sarah Williams, beloved mother, he found them. Jasmine stood guard beside a sleeping Zoe, curled up in the rain. "How did you find us?" Jasmine asked, with no surprise in her voice. "People who care about you," Maxwell said, keeping his distance. "Your mother is buried here. We come when things get bad," Jasmine said. "It helps to talk to her." She looked at the stone. "We were there when she died." They didn't believe her, thought she was lying, drug-seeking. By the time they treated her, it was too late. "We watched her die because someone decided she wasn't worth saving." Maxwell's voice cracked. "I want to make it right, not just for you and Zoe. For everyone this has happened to, especially at my company." Jasmine studied him. "Some things can't be fixed with money. I know," he said quietly, "but I still have to try." The Rich Tech boardroom fell into tense silence as Maxwell entered. His confident stride masking the storm raging beneath his calm exterior. 12 pairs of eyes followed him to the head of the long polished table, where Victor now sat, comfortably installed in the CEO's chair. It was a deliberate move, a silent power play. Maxwell ignored it. "Thank you all for being here," Maxwell began, his voice composed and steady. "I know there are concerns about my leadership since the accident. Today, I'll address those and expose issues within our company that demand immediate action. Victor leaned back, the corners of his mouth curled in a smug smile. We're glad to see you recovering, Maxwell, but the board has serious questions about some erratic decisions you've made. Specifically, your involvement with 2 undocumented minors. Several board members shifted uncomfortably, having already been fed Victor's narrative, a once brilliant CEO unraveling under pressure, acting irrationally. Maxwell didn't flinch. Those undocumented minors saved my life, he said. But they're also central to the truth I'm about to reveal, a pattern of discrimination, intellectual property theft, and systemic suppression of diverse talent within rich tech. The accusation sliced through the room like a blade. Before Victor could respond, Maxwell activated the presentation. The massive display came to life with damning data. Disparities in promotion rates, suppressed performance reviews, reattributed patents. Over 15 years, minority employees, particularly women of color, were passed over, undervalued, and erased. Despite strong technical evaluations, they were marked down for cultural fit or leadership presence. The next slide appeared, patent records. Dozens of innovations by minority developers, later reassigned to others. Some of those employees had left the company after being quietly sidelined or pressured out. Maxwell turned to the board. This isn't about isolated incidents. It's a system, and it thrived under the direct supervision of our coup, Victor Chen. Victor's jaw clenched. This is absurd, he said tightly. Cherry-picked data and bitter anecdotes. We have award-winning diversity programs. Maxwell nodded. Yes, diversity initiatives that look great on paper, while actual contributors are erased behind the scenes. He advanced to the next slide. Sarah Williams. Her resume, MIT credentials, and early reviews at Rich Tech filled the screen. Then, her timeline: 6 denied promotions, 1 discrimination complaint, and finally, her departure. Sarah Williams developed core algorithms used in our flagship products, technology that has generated over $3 billion in revenue. After her departure, her work was reassigned. Her name scrubbed from patents, the royalties redirected. Shock began to ripple through the room, faces hardened. Others looked down. Victor snapped. You're being manipulated by children with an agenda. You were always naive. Maxwell brilliant with machines, clueless about business. Maxwell didn't respond. He tapped again. New slides, financial records, forensic trails, royalties diverted into offshore accounts linked to shell corporations, all traced back to Victor. This isn't just unethical, Maxwell said flatly. It's fraud, securities violations, corporate theft on a massive scale. Victor stood now, his mask slipping. You've lost your mind, he shouted. This is a delusion, a breakdown. Maxwell's phone buzzed again. He glanced down. Security breach, armed men at the mansion. Vanessa had evacuated the girls. He locked eyes with Victor. You tried to silence the truth with lies, intimidation, even threats. But it's over. He turned to the board. You've seen the data. You've seen the documents. You can either protect this company's future or defend a man who's been bleeding it dry while sabotaging its greatest minds. The room was silent, not out of fear, but reckoning. Victor looked around, suddenly realizing no one was speaking in his defense. One board member finally said, quietly, I move to remove Victor Chen as Chief Operating Officer, effective immediately, and to notify federal authorities. A second followed, then a third. Maxwell exhaled, the tension still coiled inside him. But one battle, the boardroom, was won. The war wasn't over. Family court still loomed. The systems that failed, Sarah, Zoe, and Jasmine, wouldn't dismantle themselves. But for the first time, someone with power had chosen not to look away. This company, its employees, its shareholders, have been complicit for years, Maxwell said, turning back to the board. Victor specifically targeted minority employees for exploitation, knowing they lacked the resources to fight back. Victor's face darkened. "You sanctimonious hypocrite," he spat. "You were happy to take the credit, the billions, while I handled the messy reality of building a major corporation. Do you really think investors would have backed us if a black woman had been the face of our AI technology? Do you think clients in Texas or Dubai would have signed contracts if they knew what I had to do to make this company successful?" The room went still. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was loaded with disbelief. Victor's mask had finally slipped. Realizing his outburst had gone too far, he tried to backpedal, but it was too late. Maxwell slowly raised his phone. The red recording indicator blinked. "So you admit to deliberately suppressing minority employees for marketing optics?" he asked, his tone cold, precise. Victor sneered. "I did what was necessary," he said, dropping all pretense. This is business, not a social justice seminar. Those people were paid. If they didn't get the promotions or the credit they wanted, that's on them. That's how the world works. The strong succeed. The weak, find excuses. Maxwell's voice cut through the air. Sarah Williams wasn't weak. She was systematically undermined by someone who rigged the game, then dared to call it fair. He turned back to the board. Sarah died because the same systemic bias that destroyed her career followed her into healthcare. She left behind 2 daughters, brilliant daughters, who saved my life, while our company profited from their mother's stolen work. The room erupted into anxious discussion. Maxwell's phone buzzed again, an alert. The intruders had abandoned the mansion and were now following Vanessa's vehicle. He quickly dispatched encrypted instructions through Zoe's secure channel, then faced the board. "I move for an immediate vote to remove Victor Chen as coup, pending a full investigation, and to establish a commission to review all patent attributions and promotion decisions from the last 15 years. The vote passed 292-3. Victor stormed out before the results were even announced, but the victory was short-lived. Maxwell rushed from the building, following the custom tracker Zoe had designed. It led him to the Seattle ferry terminal, where Victor had personally joined the pursuit. The confrontation was ugly. Victor grabbed Zoe, claiming to bystanders that she was a runaway relative. Security initially sided with him. He looked the part, expensive suit, composed demeanor. But then, people started filming. Maxwell arrived, seconds later. "Those children are not related to him," he said firmly. "He's chasing them because they have evidence of his crimes." Police arrived. At first, they approached Maxwell with suspicion, but then ferry passengers stepped in. Their recordings told the real story and captured Victor's unguarded racist outbursts. The footage spread fast. Social media lit up before the ferry even left the dock. Victor was taken into custody, not just for the attempted abduction, but for a growing list of charges: fraud, conspiracy, IP theft. As Maxwell pulled the girls into a protective embrace, he realized something. They'd followed their emergency protocol exactly. They had anticipated Victor, outsmarted him, survived him. They'd protected each other, and now, finally, had an adult who would do the same for them. 3 months later, Maxwell stood in Rich Tech's renovated lobby. At the center of the room, beneath soaring glass windows, a new bronze plaque bore a single name in bold relief: Sarah Williams, primary architect of Rich Tech's algorithmic framework. "This is not an ending," Maxwell said to the assembled employees and media. "It's a beginning. We acknowledge the failures of our past and commit to a future where innovation is recognized, no matter who creates it." Victor faced multiple federal charges. The board had unanimously approved sweeping reforms. New promotion protocols eliminated subjective language. Anonymous submissions ensured ideas were judged on merit. And dozens of overlooked contributors, or their families, were finally compensated. The largest of those settlements went to a trust fund for Sarah, William's daughters. The audience applauded as Jasmine and Zoe joined Maxwell at the podium. No longer fearful, no longer invisible. Transformation was everywhere. The girls, now healthy and thriving, were enrolled in elite academic programs. Zoe's security protocols were already attracting licensing offers from major tech firms. Jasmine's art, unflinching, portraits of life on the streets, was exhibited in Seattle galleries and used by advocacy groups to raise awareness about youth homelessness. The mansion had changed too, no longer a museum of wealth, but a home. A diverse and compassionate household staff replaced the previous sterile team. Elenina, once wary, had become fiercely protective of the girls. Not everyone supported Maxwell's transformation. Some wealthy peers withdrew, uncomfortable with his critique of privilege. But others followed his lead. The Rich Tech Foundation, seated with 30% of Maxwell's personal wealth, now funded education and healthcare initiatives, areas that had most failed the Williams family. One of Zoe's coding curriculums was being taught in underserved schools, but healing wasn't instant. The trauma lingered. Family therapy became a regular ritual. Maxwell worked to earn the girls' trust. Jasmine, still wrestling with abandonment fears, once told him, "At least you finally saw it. Most people never do." 1 year later, they stood together at the crash site on Lake Washington. The repaired guardrail was the only sign of the day everything changed. Maxwell looked out over the water. "Why did you save me?" he asked. "A stranger, someone who might never have helped you." Jasmine's answer came easily, "Because that's what humans do. The miracle isn't that we saved you. The miracle is that you finally saw us." Zoe, now 11, and taking college-level computer science courses added, "Systems can be reprogrammed, even people. You just have to identify the bug." Maxwell looked at the girls, his family, and realized they'd saved him not just from drowning, but from the blindness he once called success. Has this story changed the way you think about privilege and systemic bias? Has someone ever opened your eyes to injustice you hadn't seen before? Share your thoughts below. If the Glass Mansion moved you, please like, subscribe, and share. We believe stories like this can challenge assumptions and change lives. Thank you for watching.